Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this spooktacular Spinsterella story. Pick up your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I wanted to shine a light on men's mental health awareness because every year 600,000 men wind up taking their lives, and I believe that many of those men wind up taking their lives because they don't really understand how to function as men in society, and as a result, many of those men feel so frustrated that they can't make life work in this world that they believe that things would be better in the next one. Now, one of the reasons why we have this increased number of men taking their lives is because they really don't know how to make a way for themselves in this world as men. And since they don't know how to make a way as in this world of men, what happens is again, they become extremely frustrated. They can't see any other options as related to logic, and they think the only logical option is to take their lives. And that's because we don't really, in America, go out here and invest in our men. And that's what I believe is leading to the man crisis going on here in America and the West. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, The Man Crisis, back in 2018, because I saw the increasing number of men winding up having issues as related to life. And they were having these issues as related to life because, one, they did not understand who created them, who is God. Two, they don't understand their role as men. Three, they were not taught male life skills or male survival skills by their fathers because their fathers were not in their lives due to either the man abandoning the family or the man divorcing the family or just basically him not being there at all. And because that man wasn't there, we have a boy who was raised mainly by women. And as that boy was raised mainly by women, that had an impact not only on him as related to the way he was raised, but also had an impact on his mental health because without that father there to teach him the basics of male life skills and male survival skills, that boy did not have that foundation in order to know how to navigate the world as a man. Now, over 60 years ago, feminists once believed that men and women are the same. However, God did not make men and women the same. Yes, men and women are the same species and are sexually compatible, but they are two different creatures, and the way the world works for men is completely different than the way it does for women, and that is one of the things that creates the illogic, that creates I believe, the foundation for much of the mental health issues many men wound up growing up with from Generation X onward. Now, when it came down to many of the boys who came up in that era, again, they did not get the male life skills or male survival skills from their fathers, nor did they see manhood modeled from them. And that's what I believe starts the foundation of a lot of the mental health issues a lot of boys wind up having, because I was watching old 1940s and 1950s movies where they talked about the concept of the psycho and in two movies, Anatomy of the Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, and both of those males raised by single mothers were considered to be psychos because they basically had mental health issues because they did not have that father in the home as related to modeling manhood. Moreover, I saw other films like Outrage that also talked about this whole point of men becoming antisocial because they didn't have a father or a man to model manhood for them. And this possibly is what leads to a lot of guys becoming, again, having these issues because they don't understand that the world works differently for a man than it does a woman. And since the world works differently for a man than a woman, there are different expectations for a man than a woman. And what happens with a lot of these guys is that because they were raised by females, they're expecting the world to cater to them the way it caters to a female, but it doesn't work that way because when it comes to men, men are expected to be able to take responsibility for themselves and supposed to take ownership for their actions, Moreover, men are expected to take the lead in their lives and take responsibility for their lives, and they are supposed to be able to take care of themselves and take ownership of themselves. That is what a man is supposed to be raised to do. Unfortunately, when a man doesn't have a father in his life, he doesn't have that modeled for him, that he is on his own and that he has to take ownership for himself. He doesn't get that structure or that guidance from a father to teach him how to operate as a man. Moreover, he doesn't get those male life skills to understand how the world works for men, or how to even work with men, or how to work under the authority of men. And what happens with that boy is that, again, he starts to have serious issues as related to his mental health, because he doesn't understand or see that a man has to model resolve and character as related to himself. And as he's out here in this world learning the female's approaches to life, he's expecting the world to cater to him the way it caters to women, because women basically, again, in this world, basically men go out here and provide for them, and these guys expect the world to go out here and cater to them. And that's what leads to the foundations, I believe, of the mental health issues in some men as related to things, because they're told, oh, the world is going to cater to you, the world is going to give you what you want. And again, that's not how the world works for men. Men have to go out here and work for what they want, and have to fight and struggle, and have to know how to navigate written and unwritten social rules of men that these guys aren't taught. And what happens is as these guys enter the world of men, they become extremely frustrated, they become extremely angry, and as they become frustrated and angry, they simmer and boil, trying to reconcile the logic that they were taught by their mothers with the world of men. And as they try to reconcile those emotions that were taught to him by his mother with the logical structures of men, this is what basically causes them the short circuit that I see with a lot of guys, that leads to them becoming frustrated and angry. And again, because they're trying to make life work, and they're trying to make life work in a world where the support systems for men are basically gone. I mean, the job market these days doesn't even look to support men in helping them get their first job. We don't have that anymore, because fathers aren't on the job to, again, model work for boys and also take boys to work to show them an example of being a man. Moreover, we don't have the father there with the connections to get his son his first job, so where he can learn how to work like a man and how men go out here and work. And again, without that investment in that boy, you wind up with a boy who, again, learns dysfunction at an early age, learning from his mother that he can just sit in the home because the mother is going to sit there and coddle the boy and spoil the boy, giving him everything that he wants. But then he has to go out into the world of work, which is not looking to cater to him. And that's where he starts to have issues as related to life, because the world isn't going to go out here and look to support that man that way. No, you have to give that boy the structures early on, and we don't go out here and give that boy that structure early on, and that's what leads to them having those issues as related to anxiety, as related to going into the world, because they go into this world, again, looking for people to give them something, but they're not expecting you to give you anything. They're expecting you to work for everything, and they also get anxiety because they are expected to meet a standard that they were never expected to meet, because mom, again, was coddling the boy, and people are expecting you to pull your own weight, and this is something many males don't understand how to do. And again, this is what leads to these men, again, feeling the pressures of being a man. These pressures, again, make them feel overwhelmed, and as they feel overwhelmed, they feel like they cannot operate in life, and they feel like they can't operate in life because they were not given that foundation as related to the structures of manhood that were established by God. That's what they didn't get in their early age. And again, this is why we have over 600,000 men these days taking their lives every year. Now, we didn't have this back in the up until the 90s, because again, we had a somewhat solid family structure. But as that family structure has further deteriorated, and as we've gone through economic crises like the Great Recession, like the COVID pandemic, a lot of men are not seeing a way to set a course for themselves themselves, and they're not seeing a way to set a course for themselves because we don't have that connection to God anymore in America. We don't have that institution of the father in the home to provide structure for those sons. We don't have that father there to, again, teach them the written and unwritten social rules of being a man, or teach them the male life skills and male survival skills that were established by God as related to the role that he gave men. No, what we've got are these kinder, gentler, softer males who don't understand that the world is hard, don't understand that the world is rough, don't understand that the world is rough because of the sin that Adam and Eve committed when they ate the forbidden fruit, that God made the world to be hard as related to the labors of men and the struggles of life. But the whole thing is, since they don't understand those things, this is why they are, again, becoming frustrated, becoming angry, because they're trying to make the world work the way it does for women and it works differently for men. And that's the reason why we have a lot of men, again, looking to leave this world, because they don't know how to make life work. And what further exacerbates this whole situation is we don't invest in our men. We don't invest a dime in our men whatsoever. We don't invest time in our men. No, a lot of people still are following a dysfunctional program established by the wealthy, where they wanted to, again, go to war on men, look to go to war on men by saying, oh, we don't want this man to be in a leadership role because we want to make money at the expense of the woman. We don't want the man in a leadership role because he can challenge us by organizing unions. We don't want the man in a leadership role because we want to continue paying people low wages. We don't want the man in a leadership role where he's in a position of power. And they wanted to, again, socially engineer this softer male. And this softer male, basically, since he doesn't understand what it means to be a man, is trying to, again, apply the approaches of women to a man. And that's what's leading to a lot of the mental health issues of many men, is that they're trying to reconcile this logic of, again, you being the guy who just stands there and waits for someone to give you something. When a man can't sit here and wait for anybody to give him something, he's going to have to go out and compete in the world. And he's got to go out and compete in the world because that's the way God established things. He wants the man to work and do labor. And these guys basically want to be in the role of a woman. They're hoping somebody just walks up and comes to give them something. And they wind up with the rude awakening when they enter the real world and have to deal with the struggles of men that they're not raised and equipped to handle. They're not raised and equipped to handle it because mom has coddled him and spoiled him. And he's not understanding how life works because she's used to getting her needs met by men. But there's no men to meet this guy's needs or prepare this young boy's needs because nobody invested a single thing in him. And things have gotten progressively worse as our economy has gone into a decline. We've gone into a decline as related to the 9/11 recession, the Great Recession of 2008, the COVID pandemic, and basically, again, many men finding that there's no way for them to get employment because most of the jobs are now held by women, women indoctrinated by feminism to believe that men are oppressing them, even though they are a majority of the workers in America's service economy, and they are the majority of voters in the voting bloc. They have all the power, but they continue to believe that they're oppressed, and this makes it hard for that young man when he wants to enter the workforce and look to get a job and make a living. Many of these women basically are sitting there programmed with this idea from high school and college, telling them they're being oppressed by men, and even worse, some basically project all of their failed relationships on a man looking for a job interview. And again, that makes it hard for that man to be out here looking to try to build a life for himself. And since no one is looking to invest in that man, he feels like he has no purpose. He feels like he has no direction, but he's told to suck it up as a man. He wants to talk about his problems. He wants to work on a solution because men are logical and we are problem solvers. And what we want to do is work on solving a problem. We want to work on solving problems as related to our lives, but we're told, no, we can't talk about anything. And what happens with a lot of men is that they sit there trying to work these things out in their heads as related to the broken logic that they've been given by the mother who raised them and the messages that society tells them. Oh, you are supposed to get this college degree, you're supposed to make this type of money, but when you go for the interview, what happens is they tell you that they don't want to give you the job, and because you're a man, and they think, oh, there's plenty of jobs out here, you can just go out here and get one of them. But if the majority of women got the jobs, how can you get a job? Again, these men run into these paradoxes, and it becomes extremely frustrating for them, and it becomes depressing because you go out here, you put in hundreds of applications, like I've done in 10,000 applications, can't get a call back. And even in some cases, like I did for a security guard job, you're getting laughed at by the interviewer. And again, this impacts a lot of men. A lot of men want to go out here and start their lives as men, but they can't start a life in this world because no one wants to invest in any of those men. And what's happening is that this kinder, gentler, softer male who was supposed to be more sensitive to women winds up in a world where he's being treated insensitively by those women, and he becomes frustrated as he's trying to make life in this world. And that impacts his mental health because as he's out here, he's seeing the best years of his life go by. He's seeing him not being able to make money. And again, that drives a man into depression. That drives a man into anxiety. It stresses out a man because he wants to go out here and fulfill his purpose, but he's living in a gynocentric economy that's based on consumerism and consumerism of women, and uses female own group preference to keep that man from participating in the economy. And what happens is that man really, he's trying to scavenge for a life, and he feels like he has nothing to lose. And that's what motivates, I believe, a lot of guys to basically wind up taking their own lives because they feel like they have nothing to live for. Again, I really feel it sad because the thing is with our country is we don't take the time to invest in our men, and what's even sadder is that we don't want to acknowledge the man crisis going on in this country. And what's even really more ridiculous is they'll sit there and talk about the low birth rates, but don't see how them investing in women is leading to the low birth rates because you didn't put the resources into the men. Because had you put the resources into the men, they would have the resources to go out here and build a family and start a life and go out here and be able to keep your birth rates up. And it's just them talking out of both sides of their mouth because they'll sit there and talk about, oh, we want to again have these higher birth rates, but don't see how the men are feeling like they have to take their lives, because no one wants to invest in that man whatsoever when he's a boy. Nobody wants to invest on helping that boy learn how to function as a man. Nobody wants to develop his male life skills, his male survival skills. No, nobody wants to invest in him because many of the wealthy are so greedy. They want to maintain their status quo and want to maintain their status quo because they don't want a man to upend their order, which is outside the order of God. They don't want any man to upend their order. So what they do is, again, created this whole economic system. And again, that economic system has an impact on men's mental health because those men want to, and in their youth, go out here, live to accomplish something, live to accomplish God's purpose. That's what those men want to do. Those men want to go out into the world but never can get their life started and can't get their life started. And since they can't get their life started, this is where they want to end their lives. Again, a lot of men basically are feeling frustrated because they go out here, they're told, oh, you can go out here and be whatever you want. But the whole thing is when they try to go out here, they run into a wall where they get no support from society, and basically everybody telling them to just be a man. Don't talk about your problems. Don't talk about what's bothering you as you're dealing with issues like anxiety, as you're dealing with depression from not being able to do things, as you see your sisters and your mothers going out here having careers. And you're wondering, why doesn't mom go help him get a job? I mean, again, this is what really messes it up because the father understands my son got to go out here in this world and make a living for himself. My son got to go out here and take care of business. My son has to be prepared to be a man. But many women in feminism thought, oh, we don't need no men, not understanding the male that you have here, if he has no purpose and no direction, he's going to feel like there's nothing to live for. And much of this is swept under the rug because many women don't want to deal with the accountability of the boys that they raised. No, they want a smooth world where they don't have to deal with the problems or conflicts or obstacles as related to the son that they raised. And that's why many of these males suffer in silence. And we're seeing that the whole situation is getting progressively worse as related to many of these men who feel like, again, there's no support system. I mean, there's no welfare state for men. And when it comes to things like disabilities, like anxiety, they're not seen as things that a guy can get an SSI check for, because again, you have to prove all of this. So a lot of men, basically, they feel like they have no way to make a living in this world. A lot of men feel like they have no way to, again, be able to fill their role as a head or a steward in God's order. They feel like they have no purpose whatsoever. And what's sad is we've got an apathetic government that is more interested in the consumerism of women and not looking to invest in one of the greatest resources God has given us, which is men. I mean, God gives you a man in order to, again, do labor and be a steward. But in our service economy, they depend more on women than men because they want cheaper labor. And again, that cheap labor keeps us from being able to have an abundant life like many people had. And again, the whole situation with America is we don't invest in our men, and that's why we have a mess of a country with industries like Hollywood going broke because they want to push girl power in their media narratives, but don't see that most of your money came from men. Most of your money came from men out here as they were starting their lives, building their lives up, because men are who God made to be builders. And the whole thing is, in order for a man to build, his mental health has to be right. And if we don't go out here and start dealing with the issues that men have, if we don't start dealing with the issues men have, you're not going to have a country, because countries are protected by men. But if your men are believing that they have to leave the world because there's nothing in it for them, and that's the big problem America has, is it doesn't want to invest in its men, because if you invest in your men, you can incentivize them to go out here and want to live or have something to live for or have a purpose. Again, when you invest in your men, you are putting life in your country, because your whole quality of life is based on your men. But sadly, America, we don't invest in our men, and that's why our country's in the bad place that it is, because many men feel like there's nobody investing in them, so they feel like they have no purpose, have no reason to live, and sadly, that's what's leading to the mental health crisis going on in this country, I believe, and is exacerbated because we don't want to invest in our men, because a handful of people profit from investing in women, where for every dollar given to a woman, they get $1,000 as related to government programs, tax breaks, tax credits, and set-asides. They get more money for investing in women, but it's destroying the quality of life in this country, not only for men, but for women as well, because these women sit there and wonder why you can't find a man to be a husband. And that's because you didn't invest in your men. You didn't invest in your men. You didn't invest in helping them to become leaders, becoming heads, becoming stewards. And that's why America's falling behind as related to innovation. We're falling behind because we don't invest in our men, and we don't invest in our men's mental health to make sure that they're okay. I mean, that's the big problem I have been seeing, as I myself have been dealing with anxiety for the last couple of years. I mean, because you can't get that job that makes you stable. You can't get that job to help you get your life started. You can't get that break to be able to move your life forward. And with men stuck in a place where they can't go anywhere, they feel the only place they can go is to leave this world. And that's something many of these people in the mainstream media don't want to talk about, as related to the 600,000 of people who took their lives. I mean, 600,000 people took their lives, I believe, in a lot of cases, because they look at this world, they tell them, oh, go get your education, go out here and get this education to get this job. But when they try to go out here and try to start their lives, they find out they can't go anywhere. And when they try to do things in life, things can't work because they're trying to make things work from a woman's perspective. And that's all because we didn't invest in that boy early on in his early age. We didn't invest in teaching him the male life skills and male survival skills he'll need to be able to go out in the world. We didn't take the time to teach him the written and unwritten social rules of men, because only a man can teach a boy to be a man. Only a man can teach a boy how the world works, and only a man it will be the solution for solving the man crisis, because the only way we can solve the man crisis is if we as a group of men walk away from this whole system and start looking to invest in ourselves and put the time and effort into the next generation of young men. That's how we solve the man crisis. I talk about this in my book, The Man Crisis. The only way to solve the mental health crisis as related for men is for men to invest in each other, because we can't rely on government or big business. They don't see the value of men. No, they'll sit there and talk about low birth rates, but don't see that you investing in the woman is not profiting you at all. No, if in order to get your birth rates up, you need to have men on the job, men in stable employment, men able to make a living, and men competing, because that helps your nation grow. That's something nobody wants to do to help deal with the mental health crisis as related to men, because men, again, in order for men to function, they need that investment in them. And sadly, many here in America can't connect the dots to see all these men taking their lives is about them not investing in those men. Because when you don't invest in a man, it doesn't pay off in anything whatsoever, because a guy with no purpose, again, has no reason to live. And in his mind, has no reason to live in his mind, and that's something that flies over the heads of those who don't understand the way we deal with this whole situation. Is we've got to start putting investment in our men, start investing in our men when they're boys, so that they can become healthy men and not men in crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about how to identify many of the issues that men struggle with that lead to the mental health crisis that we have in this country as related to men, that leads to 600,000 men being motivated to take their lives, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos talking about the man crisis, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA, from the Black Boule, in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.